So without any further ado, here's Jeff.
Well, thank you, Rick. The first slide here has both my contact information and Patrick Siebert's contact information. Patrick handles the Northeast for JVC and and MRI, and I handle actually all the AllNet Custom Plus and Volume business. So if you have any questions at all, please call either Patrick or I, or reach out to us as it applies to any stock issues or something. Obviously, your distributor can answer those. JVC is in stock, ready to do business, and so are our retailers or distributors. So please reach out to them accordingly. So first of all, JVC's DNA comes from the flight simulator business. Now, this is a trickle-down effect. So when flight safety is important, JVC is the one to be in shoes for that. The reason why is because of high native contrast. Flying requires a great deal of contrast when it comes to optics, and Boeing, FedEx, Rockwell Collins, NASA, and the U.S. military all select JVC for the flight simulators. Now, flight simulator projectors range anywhere between 3 flight simulator projectors in one up to 13 different projectors, and JVC is the brand that is chosen by all these various different product manufacturers. When it's mission critical, JVC is the reason they choose that. A few things. Some of you may be familiar with JVC projectors, and we have 2 different lines of projectors, and I want to make sure that everyone knows that the ProCision brand, which is sold through AllNet, Custom Plus, Volume, and MRI, are the DLA NX5, 7, 9, and also on the RS4500. There are competing models of DLA RS1000, 2000, and 3000, as well as the RS4500, which can be purchased from both our distribution base. The difference is the color of the trim ring and where you purchase it. So ProCision is sold through distribution and brick and mortar, and then the only way you can purchase reference series is through the Avid organization /Wave. But the reality is there is no difference, and there are a great deal of many reasons why to purchase from the Snap group. So again, that's just touching on some differences, because that's always a question that comes up at the end of the presentation. I want to address that first this time. One huge selling point that JVC has over our competition is we offer a 3-year advanced exchange warranty. That 3-year advanced exchange warranty is real simple. When the client has a problem, if they have a problem in a period of 3 years, what would happen is you, the integrator, would contact me or Patrick Siebert and say, hey, look, I think we got a problem. We go through a simple troubleshooting process. If we determine that projector is in fact defective, we just simply ask for an image of the projector, the back panel of the projector with the serial number and also the model number, and also the contact information for the client. My customer care people reach out to that client. We get their information. We send a replacement projector out to the job site. You work with your client on how much time and energy is going to be put for you. Take that down and put it back up. That's between you and your client, but then you take down that defective projector, put it in the box, ship it back to JVC, all at JVC's cost. And depending upon where you're at in the country, that could take as little as 4 days up to maybe about 7 days, depending upon where you're at for shipping times. But again, this is something that's unique to JVC as it applies to native 4K projectors, and that 3-year advanced exchange warranty is there for each and every one of you and for your customers. So please, when the selling process, mention that for peace of mind, and also the fact that they know what to do. If there is a problem, they reach out to you, you'd reach out to me, and we take care of that customer in short order. September, the end of this month, there's a lot of different things happening. First of all, the best prices of the year are right now through your Snap distributors through end of this month. There's an incentive, and also the big thing is the DLA NX7 retail price move will go up to $89.99, $95. That's going up from $79.99.95 on October 1st. It's important that if you got any jobs out there that are going to use an NX7, that you get those before the end of this month, because you'll see a price increase. There also is a margin increase as well, a slight margin increase. So it's not just a price increase. So that margin increase will be around about 3 points or so in that regard. But the other thing, as Rick alluded to earlier, there is the DLA NX9 has a free lamp promo through the end of this month. So the customer has the ability to receive a $600 retail value lamp from JVC. This is all going through the distributor. So we send the distributor the lamp, not the end user, and then they give it to you when you order a DLA NX9 through the end of this month. I know this is in a few days, but again, that's the reality. One of the biggest news to come out of CEDIA is JVC's newest feature called Frame Adapt HDR. Now, Frame Adapt HDR is truly a game changer when it comes to the playback of high dynamic range content, specifically HDR10 content. This dynamically tone maps not only by title, as our auto tone mapping did when we introduced that last year. We're going to be offering a firmware update in production product, the NX5, 7, and 9, all three of our native 4K projectors will have this Frame Adapt HDR feature, which we'll talk about in a moment. And this is also available to any customer that has purchased a DLA NX5, 7, or 9 this past year via firmware update. So that's a really great thing, and it really was a huge feature for JVC at CEDIA. Anyone that saw the demos actually saw an increase in brightness, which equated to more color, which equated to also more detail and far more contrast. And I'll talk about that in a little bit here. That new firmware update also has Panamorph scaling mode, a new Panamorph D mode, which will accommodate Panamorph DCR lenses for the NX 9, because that uses a much larger 100mm diameter all glass lens, as all our projectors do. It also has a new support calibration with the Spider X. For anybody that wants to calibrate a projector, that's JVC's calibration software. And there's also some additional new screen sets, presets that are in this firmware as well. So depending upon what screen you use, the projector can match its color profile to give you much better picture quality. So HDR is picture quality, Panamorph is picture quality, the auto calibration is picture quality, and new screen sets are all picture quality enhancements. And this is all at no additional cost to anyone, including that the customer. It's just more of a feature forward approach that JVC has adopted in this past year. So that's available. That feature forward approach, we did some similar major firmware updates on the native 4K products, the 5, 7s, and 9. In March, we added a Panasonic color profiles for the UB9000, which that UB9000 UHD Blu-ray player from Panasonic now is the quintessential reference UHD Blu-ray player, and they have JVC and Panasonic actually collaborated together to have the correct profiles for each other, and that was a huge advancement this year. In June, we added that to the RS4500, our flagship piece at $30,000. That's our laser projector with 3,000 lumen output. And then, of course, in October, we're going to be adding the Frame Adapt, a new anamorphic scaling mode, new calibration modes, as well as the DLA NX5, 7, and 9 are on there as well. JVC projectors have been very well reviewed over the years, and that doesn't stop this year. But the reality is that our biggest competition isn't the other native 4K manufacturer, Sony. It is with panels, and panels are our major competition. The reality is brightness is always been an issue, and also ambient light is an issue. JVC is addressing that, and we're the only native 4K company that's actually addressing that in terms of dynamic tone mapping, again with HDR. And HDR, no matter how close you sit, no matter how far away you sit, no matter what light environment you sit in, HDR is going to be something you're going to see automatically, no matter what the screen size is. This is a feature that it doesn't have to do with resolution. It has everything to do with contrast. and color, and JVC does that extremely well. Now, if you take projection versus flat panel, there's the dedicated home theater and of course big screen TV in multi-purpose rooms. Depending upon the screen you choose and the amount of light control you have in a room, you can definitely watch projection both in a theater and a multi-purpose room. And again, considering the fact that there's various different screen sizes. End users, we all would like to have a screen that's as big as we can. I mean, asking an end user customer, do you want the very best, biggest screen size you can afford? No one's ever going to say no, I want the small screen. They always want to say I want the biggest screen. So that being said, 75-inch panels are very commonplace now, but you can offer a customer a big screen in terms of projection, and getting a screen that's twice as big as a 75-inch basically equates to 108 inches on a screen, which for projection is relatively small. So think of it, twice the size of a 75-inch is only about 108 inches. And the other thing is that you can sit as close as you want with projection because it's native 4K. You don't have to sit back that far. So these are all some of the reasons why you would want to offer your end user projection, and with the understanding that a few things, understanding throw distances, understanding how to calculate brightness and things. And I'm going to talk about how you do these things very easily through some applications that you can download yourself on your cell phones that JVC has on our website, in terms of our screen calculator and things of that nature. So you don't have to really know that much, you just need to know where to get the information. But also remember the fact that when going with a projection system, there are a lot more things you can offer that customer in terms of screen options, whether it's an ambient light rejection screen, whether it's a motorized screen, whether it's a screen that's micro perf or weave to put speakers behind it, which ideally is not ideal for a projection system, but nonetheless, the aesthetics of the room are important, and some people want to put their speakers behind the screen. That's important. You have to offer a mount. You have to offer them a little longer HDMI or fiber or balun that's out there. We'll talk about that in a few minutes here too. System control, upgraded audio. These are all things that are going to enhance that customer's ability to be entertained very easily, but at the same time, offering you to have a higher average price ticket than just slapping a TV on the wall with a panel and calling that home theater. So home theater doesn't have to be in a dedicated home theater. It can be in a multi-purpose room, and understanding some of the things that go along with that is important. Now, what I want to talk about now is not necessarily all this verbiage that's on each and every one of these next slides, but what's important for you to understand and you to know when talking to your customer. Brightness is mightily important with projection, as it is with panels, because HDR requires more brightness. The larger the screen you have, the more brightness you need from your projector. And brightness is measured in various different ways and various different terms. There's lumens, there's ANSI lumens, there's nits, there's foot lamberts, there's candelas, but the reality is this. Lumen brightness is how a projector is measured. And the higher the lumens, the brighter the projector can be, the larger the screen it can be, and also the higher the ambient light can be in any given room. Nit level, again, is the brightness, but nit level is how HDR content is actually manufactured or produced. Knowing the nit level, and you won't know the nit level because unless you have a projector or a panel that tells you what the nit level is, you wouldn't know what it is. But at the same time, this is how HDR is optimized in both JVC's auto tone mapping and Frame Adapt HDR, which will be available in October. It works on the nit level, or the lack of the nit level in this case, which I'll talk about. But two important numbers are very important. Knowing that for HDR content, and this is why people are buying home theater in the first place, it's not necessarily because it's 4K, because they want better picture quality, and HDR gives that both in color and contrast, as well as 4K native sources like UHD or streaming content. You need about 40 to 50 foot lamberts of brightness. Now, for SDR content, standard dynamic range, 1920 by 1080p content, you need about 16 foot lamberts. So brightness is important. Knowing where to get that brightness information is important. And as I said, I'll refer to that a little bit later on in here. Contrast ratio. Contrast can be measured many different ways, but at the end of the day, the higher the contrast that is measurable and that is actually discernible all at one time is important. Now, JVC uses both dynamic and native contrast measurements, and the difference between dynamic and native is quite different in the effective means of what it really means to you, the end user, in the sense that native contrast is basically measuring at the center of the screen 100% white and then shooting 100% black. That is when the projector is at one setting, all right, as you would be watching a movie. Dynamic contrast does the same thing, but it allows the manufacturer, in this case JVC or Sony or LG or Samsung or whoever makes the panel or projector, to actually measure that with different settings. So in other words, if you want to measure black on a projector, you're going to reduce the iris or the aperture down to get the black, the darkest black level. If you're going to do that with a white signal, you're going to do that with the iris or aperture all the way open. Same thing with panels, you're just adjusting the contrast and brightness. So native contrast is one of the big things that JVC offers more than anything else, and it's that contrast that makes it more three-dimensional. Color, color can be sampled at anywhere from 420 to 422 to 444. This is all about banding. If you'll notice the image on the right side, the sunset, look in from the ocean to the sky, you'll see a lot of banding going in from the darker gray to the orange. That's because it's yes.
I don't know that our slides are advancing.
Huh. I'm moving them right now. What slide are you on?
No, we're still on the initial slide with your contact info.
Huh. How is that possible? I'm moving this. I am moving everything I can right now, and it's advancing on my end, but it's still on the initial slide.
Yes.
Huh.
Yeah. Let me.
Any suggestions, Rick?
Thinking of something here. Hold on.
Should I refresh?
They're 245, but I'll manage them as more.
Rick, is it changing now?
Go ahead and refresh if you'd like. I made myself presenter, and it's now on my blank desktop, and then I'm gonna make you presenter again.
Okay. All right, I refreshed as well.
Okay. There you go. And now I see new slides. Okay.
Are they advancing now?
They are.
Rick?
They're moving now. So thanks. Sorry about that.
I apologize, everybody.
No worries.
The color is all based on 8-bit and 10-bit. And this is why having the right cable connectivity is so vitally important. Anything after 30 feet can't process the color bit depth. Now that color bit depth is equated to numbers. SDR content, 1920 by 1080, basically is 16 million colors. But when you go to 10-bit in 422 or 444, you're working over 1 billion colors. So it's not about the resolution that is the difficulty. It is the amount of color that needs to be processed, and that color equates to banding. That color equates to color depth and also radiation. And JVC has been doing this very, very well for many, many years. But again, about color. Now, color gamut, this is important because standard dynamic range will only output Rec 709. But when you go to UHD 4K content, that is in a DCI-P3 packet, which is a much wider color gamut than Rec 709 is. But UHD 4K content also is shot at BT 2020, even the widest color gamut. So the important thing here is that every JVC projector in the DILA, direct drive image light amplifier variety, will give you up to 100% DCI-P3, 100% Rec 709, and over 77% of BT 2020. And BT 2020, there isn't a projector or a panel out there that's available today, unless it's for color grading from Hollywood, that will give you 100% BT 2020. So this is important. So widest color gamut. Gamma, gamma is not necessarily important to understand all about gamma, but gamma is all about HDR and the way our eyes perceive HDR. And the gamma is what changes, and I'll show you here in a minute. But if you'll notice on this slide here, it says 100 nits, 600 nits, and I forget, I think it's 1,000 nits. I can't see it because of my screen right now. But the reality is that the gamma is based on the nit level I referred to earlier. 100 nits, the gamma curve or PQ curve is one way. At 600 nits, the gamma curve is different, and then yet at 1,000 nits is even more different. So gamma is what affects that HDR content, and JVC has auto tone mapping and frame adapt HDR that does this automatically. Otherwise, it's up to the end user to actually view what's on there, and no one is going to do that. JVC does it automatically, so that's really important as well. So HDR standards, these are the standards that the consumer electronics industry has set up for HDR10, hybrid log gamma, HDR10 plus, and Dolby Vision. I want to talk about what HDR10 plus offers over HDR10 and also Dolby Vision. First of all, Dolby Vision, there isn't a projector spec for Dolby Vision. So number one, that is thrown out. There isn't a projector that's commercially available for home cinema use that has the ability to produce over 1,000 nits brightness. But what is important is Dolby Vision allows the projector or panel to change the metadata dynamically, or change the image quality dynamically based on the metadata that's being supplied from the HDR10 content or Dolby Vision content. HDR10 plus allows that to be done by scene, but not frame by frame. And also HDR10 plus requires HDMI 2.1, which there aren't any commercially available HDMI 2.1 inputs available. There are some proprietary HDMI 2.1 inputs out there, but the reality is JVC has leapfrogged both HDR10 plus and Dolby Vision with frame adapt HDR by the actually measuring using the metadata, or, and this is important, without the metadata, and actually either dynamically tone map each and every scene or each and every frame. And that's something that you as an integrator can select for your client if they want it done scene by scene or frame by frame. And that's a huge benefit for JVC, and no one else is addressing it in this way. But again, the HDR standards are HDR10, HDR10 plus, Dolby Vision, and then of course hybrid log gamma for streaming content, which currently we're not using too much in this country. But JVC addresses HDR10, HDR10 plus, and Dolby Vision aspects, but we call that frame adapt HDR. And what's important is, again, it doesn't require the metadata to do that. So if we take resolution, we take black level, we take color, and we take brightness, I'll put that all together. JVC is going to make sure that we give you the very, very best at whatever price point it's at, whether it's at $6,000, whether it's at $8,000 or $9,000, which starts in October on the NX7, or $17,000 on the NX9 with a free lamp. JVC is going to ensure that you get the best resolution with all glass native 4K lenses. Each and every lens is all glass. We're going to make sure you have the highest contrast to give you the best three-dimensionality, the best color purity based on the contrast and brightness, and also the fact that that widest color gamut is very, very important as well. If you look at the chart on the right side of the screen, you'll notice that the lumens are going to equate to screen size, and anything in green is going to be within that 40 to 50 foot Lambert's area. 40 in the yellow area is going to ensure that you get that within that as well. And then anything in red you want to stay away from, because it's not going to give you a bright enough image for HDR. It's perfect for standard dynamic range because you only need 14 to 16 foot Lambert's of brightness, but you need 40 to 60 with larger screens and higher ambient lighting conditions. So the NX5, 7, and 9 are 1800, 1900, and 2200 lumen brightness, and you can see how that equates to the size of the screens. When talking about best picture, JVC is going to ensure that you get the best native quality, dynamic all glass lenses, wide color gamut, dynamic tone mapping as I referred to, and auto calibration. Same thing applies to our laser projectors. The other three were lamp based. This is laser based. This comes in at $30,000 retail item, and this is the RS4500. Our new 4K device makes sure that we address the brightness and contrast really well. JVC was a little later in coming out with native 4K projectors, not because we couldn't. We had that in flight simulators for many, many years. The reality is that we need to make sure that we have the highest brightness and the highest contrast for consumer use, and that is why this new chip is very important, because of the improved planarization techniques, which reduced light scatter, and you want to control that amount of light. The large lens on the NX9 and the RS4500 is important, 100 millimeter for larger screens. That 65 millimeter all glass lens, which is used in the NX5 and the NX7, is also really, really important because, again, all glass is going to equate to better image quality and brightness. Auto tone mapping, I've talked about a little bit about that. That is currently what's on the projectors, and that affects by title, and it sets the title up one time based on the metadata. If the metadata is not there, and there are many titles that don't have metadata, older titles, as well as some studios refuse to use metadata, like Disney. They don't put any metadata on their equipment. Auto tone mapping sets itself up based on 1,000 nit brightness. But there are titles out there that have over 10,000 nit brightness, 4,000 nits, and anywhere in between. Auto tone mapping works extremely well, but then we also build on that. Now, I want to give you an idea of how important this feature is and why it's necessary for you to spec into jobs. As it equates to how the customer's sense of entertainment is going to be enjoyed because of auto tone mapping and frame adapt HDR. If you'll notice here, there's the Apple 4K TV, and it gives you the max constant light level, the brightest pixel on the screen or in the content, and the average light level. You'll notice how the picture tone, dark level, and bright level are set at one level for this particular title. And if you look at the screen, you'll see it's 1, 0, and 1 for picture tone, dark level, and bright level. Change the content from Netflix, and you'll notice how that picture tone, dark level, and bright level will have changed to -3, 0, and 1. If yet again you changing it, it's going to go to +6 on YouTube, a 0 dark level, and +6 in bright level. This is all what auto tone mapping does, one time for one title at a time, and it works extremely well. Now, we take auto tone mapping and go further. When you have very, very bright areas. This is an image from the Meg, and this is a very dynamic image that you can see the difference on how JVC does things automatically versus how other manufacturers, well, they handle it a little bit differently and doesn't have the same results. This is a scene that is shot from below, shooting up through the surface of the water, going to the surface. You'll see a diver coming down on a dive cage, backlit by the sun. Auto tone mapping. At on a 4,000 nit title, you can actually see the diver, you can see the contrast or content, you can see the cage at 4,000 nits with auto tone mapping on. Another manufacturer that makes more native 4K projectors sets it up with an HDR contrast of set at 80, which is recommended, and that diver goes away, the cage goes away, and you see a lot of banding in the blue area where you don't see that on the JVC. Now this happens to be an NX9, and you'll get the same results with the DLA NX7 and the NX5 as well. But I wanted to show you the difference here. How you optimize that for the competitor is by going to a contrast ratio of 43. But again, the customer, the end user, would have to adjust that. JVC does it automatically, and it's very simple. Now, Frame Adapt HDR, which we're introducing in October production and also as a firmware update, does this scene by scene and frame by frame. So no matter what the brightness level is, no matter what the contrast is, no matter what the color is, it sets itself up automatically to give you the very, very, very best picture quality each and every time you put in HDR10 content. This is a huge thing. The way it's perceived by the client, by you, by anybody that watches this, it's a much brighter picture. What happens is the projector becomes more efficient. We can't make the image, we can't make the lamp any more than 265 watts. So we're not making it brighter. What we're doing is making the efficiency of the projector going up. As an example, let's say that it's approximately at a 75% efficiency now with auto tone mapping. With HDR or Frame Adapt HDR, it goes up to over 90% efficient, thus giving you a brighter image, which effectively makes the projector brighter with HDR content, which we all need for a larger screen content anyway, and gives you better picture quality, better color, better contrast, and it does not affect the black level. Matter of fact, if the black levels are crushed, in other words, too black, it brightens those up. If the peak white is too bright, it dims it. If the peak white isn't bright enough, it brightens it. The end result is a better picture automatically every time, and you don't need the metadata to do it. So that's a big, 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 big feature. Sell that feature now. Sell that feature all day long. It'll be available in production pieces starting in October, and it'll be able to be updated firmware-wise for your clients when that starts going in production. So I anticipate that being somewhere around mid to third week of October, that actually happening. And again, this actually gives you another reason to get into your customers' homes. Offer a firmware update. Offer them the fact that you can come out, and that's between you and your client how much you want to charge for that feature. But nonetheless, people want to have something that improves picture quality, and it's not going to cost them anything other than the time it takes you to go out there, which is about a 20-minute firmware update. So it takes about 20 minutes to load the firmware into the USB input on the back of the projector and gives you the ability to do that. JVC has products are THX 4K HDR certified, like the NX9 and also the RS4500. Every JVC projector is ISF certifiable calibration with corresponding software. So the NX5, 7, 9, and RS4500 have that. We have very low latency times of 2 frames accuracy when it comes to projection. So for anybody that wants to play video games, and everyone would love to play a video game on a larger screen, we have that as well. But going through the model lineup, the NX5 will add a Frame Adapt HDR this year starting in October. So 3rd generation chipset, all glass lenses, high lumen output, a high contrast ratio of 40,001. That's at $6,000 retail. Currently today, the NX7 is at $79.99.95. but October 1st that goes at $89.99.95. But that's going to give you wider color gamut than the NX5, twice the contrast, and that is also going to give you the ability to have a frame adapt HDR as well. So the NX5, 7, 9 have frame adapt. They all have auto tone mapping, but the reality is frame adapt leapfrogs auto tone mapping. So there's really no reason to have auto tone mapping if you have frame adapt HDR on those projectors. So depending on when you sell it, just leave it alone, let it go. And make sure it's in frame adapt HDR out of the box, and you're good to go. So this model here has been our best seller, and JVC is raising the price. This should have been $10,000 last CD, not this last one a couple weeks ago, but last CD. JVC missed the boat on that. That probably should be a $10,000 projector based on its performance compared to the competition. But again, the NX7 is there. So if you look at some black and white facts, all right, and these are nothing in here is an opinion, everything is fact. The Sony VPL VW295 is $1,000 less than the DLA NX5. That's a value proposition Sony's chosen. We have a 265 watt lamp. They're 225 watts. What that equates to is 1500 lumens versus 1800 lumens. That makes a big difference for HDR content. JVC specifies our contrast at 40,000 to 1 or 400,000 to 1. Sony doesn't specify that at all. But if you look over the 695 Sony at $10,000, they're at 350,000 to 1. We're at 400,000 to 1 at the $6,000 price point, $4,000 less with better contrast ratio. We have 10 different lens installation modes. In other words, if you want to sell anamorphic lens with 295, or you want to use the ability to go 235, 240, 239, you can do that with JVC. Can't do that with Sony at the $5,000 level. Wider color gamut, as well as the fact we have frame adapt HDR and auto tone mapping. So for $1,000, that's quite the value proposition. The NX7 for $1,000 less than the 695. While the 695 is a 280 watt lamp, we're still at 1900 lumens with the 265 watt lamp and 1800 lumens on the Sony. So we win there. 800,000 to 1 or 80,000 to 1 in native contrast, over twice the contrast on the Sony. 10 different installation modes. That may be a little overkill. The Sony has 5, which is great. We have a wider color gamut. And again, frame adapt HDR and ISF calibratable with corresponding software. So you can see the value proposition that JVC has on the $6,000 and the $10,000 range. But again, we're at $9,000 where our competition is at $10,000, and it's a great value proposition. The NX9. This is a flagship. It uses the same lens as a $30,000 projector, 2200 lumens, frame adapt HDR. This is the projector that we demonstrated at CEDIA this year, and there's been just a tremendous amount of press on good things about the frame adapt HDR. That was the reason we used that versus an NX7 is simple because it was on a 165-inch screen, so we need the added lumens to give you the brightness for that 165-inch screen. But again, the NX9 also has 8K E-shift, which takes a native 4K device, 4096 by 2160, and actual pixel shifts that to over 35 million pixels using 8K E-shift. So the lineup is 6,000, 9,000 starting October 1st. Currently, the NX7 is $8,000 through there, and then of course $17,999.95 on our lamp-based products. And when you go to the RS4500, that is $30K. Now 8K E-shift, basically what it does is it quadruples the pixels by pixel shifting down and over a half a pixel. For one pixel that was in 4K, there's now 4 pixels that are in 8K, and this is going to double speed, do it with double speed, and your eyes and your brain effectively don't see it. So therefore, is it real? The answer is absolutely yes, it's real, because you perceive it as being real. Now, JVC pioneered pixel shifting. Pixel shifting is being used on DLP products. Pixel shifting is using on LCD products, and we will continue to use pixel shifting on some of our higher end products to give you the best picture quality. But the one thing it doesn't do is it doesn't reduce brightness and it doesn't reduce contrast, and that's why it's being used, and that's why we pioneered it many years ago. When we go to the NX9, we'll see that at $18,000, the 885 to 24,000. Notice it is a lamp-based system. It's all glass 4K lamp lenses with 100 millimeter diameter, 2200 lumen brightness, much brighter lumens, higher contrast ratios, and also frame adapt HDR. So this is a big deal. And the RS 4500, that is our laser piece at 3000 lumens and at 30K. That's still a very strong piece for JVC. That matter of fact won the best projector of the year in 2018 from Sound and Vision. And that was at $35,000 back then. Now it's down to $30,000. Installation features, it's important to realize that you're dealing with 17:9 chipsets. So when you set this up, you're going to see two borders on the screen. You're going to see an outside where this darker red line is, and then the dotted line is actually a 16:9 chip. Make sure you try to you have to adjust the screen on 16:9 to that dotted line, not the outside line. Set the height. So you're basically losing 28 pixels. 128 pixels on the left, 128 pixels on the right. But of course, if you use an anamorphic lens for 235 or anamorphic scaling, you're going to pick that back up. So that's important there. Also, when adjusting the convergence on projector, especially the larger the lens is and the more glass that's in it, do that after about 30 to 45 minutes of actual start time. Turn the projector on when you get in first, whether you're ready to install or not, turn it on. Let it warm up, and then when you do your final adjustments, you're going to make sure that you have that adjusted properly once the glass actually heats up to spec temperature. Calculating throw distances, really all you have to know is this. Go to jvc.com, go to Lens Calculator, or download the Video Calc application on iTunes or through Google or Apple. Video Calc is a great application because that will also give you the lumen output. All you have to know is the screen size, and that's basically the screen width times the throw ratios. On JVC, the throw ratios are 1.4 to 2.8 on the NX5 and 7, and there's 1.35 to 2.7 on the NX9 or RS 4500. Knowing the screen that you have, and then that'll actually take you to the throw distance. It'll take you to the amount of lumen output that you're going to get, the brightness for HDR content, and that's going to be important to remember. You're looking at numbers between 40 and 50 at minimum. The higher the better. For great performance. So if you got 40 to 50 foot Lamberts of output from your projector and your screen, the customer is going to be very happy with their HDR performance. Always remember that you should have a projector that is never uses any pitch, tilt, or roll. It should be flat and parallel to the screen. Never use keystone, even though JVC has keystone. Never use it because you destroy the picture quality or resolution when you use keystoning, meaning that if it's tilted down or up, you're going to have to use keystoning to make it fit the screen. If that happens, then you've probably not got the projector in the right spot to begin with, or it's not the right projector for the job. So please do that. JVC has 10 different lens modes, which is adjust screen control, screen mask, screen correction, keystone if you want to use it, don't. Pin cushion if you want to use it, don't. Aspect ratio, and also pixel adjustment for various different screen sizes. We have up to 665 different screen modes to adjust the the color profile of that screen. So we help with that, and we've also added we have 4 different anamorphic modes based on the lens that you're using, and that will work there. Ultra wide solutions. Every JVC projector in the NX5, 7, and 9 that's DILA has a anamorphic mode, so you can go with lens memory. You can adjust the aspect ratio, and that's everything is discrete control. So you have that ability to do that without an anamorphic lens. You shoot it above and below the screen, and you're good to go. The other thing too is remember that when you use the anamorphic screen, people have the impression that customers anyway have the impression that they're going to lose size at 16:9. The 16:9 image on a 103-inch wide CinemaScope style screen is the same width as it is on a 90-inch flat panel. The reality is it fills the top and bottom of the screen. It's just a matter where you want your black bars. But if you take the same thing and you do CinemaScope content movies, you have to have a 75% bigger image when you're at 103 inches from a 90 inch. And before I mentioned a 75 inch, if you're 108 inches, that's over 100% larger image. And that's what people want, bigger images. So CinemaScope style screens have a very, very high value proposition presented the right way for the client. All of you may not use an anamorphic lens. However, if you do, JVC is highly compatible with Panamorph, both the Paladin and also the Paladin DCR lenses, which are fixed lenses now. They don't move out of the way. You just, depending upon what the content is, that can be done programmed with a discrete code and either stretch vertically or horizontally based on the lens that's being used. JVC projectors have a very wide shift range. We have 100% vertical and horizontal offset for the NX9 and the RS4500, as well as a 43% vertical, horizontal shift range. When the NX5 and NX7, that's an 80% vertical shift range with 34% horizontal. So again, it doesn't need to be set at the top of the screen. It can be set way above or below the screen and effectively give you much better value proposition. Air intakes are on the back of our DLA product. Exhaust is on the front, so make sure you have about 6 inches of air intake on the back of a JVC projector. Make sure there's nothing in front of the exhaust ports. One side is for the lamp, the other side is for the projector. The projector lamp door is on the side of the projectors. Simply taking one screw out the door, 2 screws off the lamp. That is usually replaceable. Those lamps are about $600. The back panel of the projectors all look the same regardless of the price point. 2 18 gig full speed, full spec HDMI inputs. You have RS-232 control, you have IP control through RJ45 connection. USB is both for power for a Balun, as well as any HDMI connectivity that needs to be there, and that's where the USB also any firmware updates go through the back. Our DIA projectors are all 3D compatible with the PKAG3 and PKEM2 emitters. The PKL2618UG is the lamp. That's about 4,500 hours half-life of that lamp. A great deal of time on that. We just started the UH1Bs and Ws. These are our DLP products. These DLP products offer a brand new DLP 0.47-inch chip. That chip is going to reduce any border that was on previous 0.47-inch DLP Texas Instruments chips, and also there's a new HDMI input on the back of that. Both available in white and black. These are currently available. These are $24.99 with a 2,000 lumen output for the UH1B and W. And finally, we're wrapping up with the LX-NZ3B or W. This is a new projector we introduced at CEDIA. This will be available in November for just October ship from JVC. This is a 3,000 lumen, 20,000-hour laser projector. This was a really big hit at CEDIA. This is a smaller profile than any of our other projectors. This is for a multi-purpose room application. It is not DLA, it's DLP, so the contrast is going to be less, but so is the price. It's $3,700 for laser and 3,000 lumens. So this should be a really good seller for us in respect to where we're at right now. So I want to open this up for any questions and make sure that if you have any reason to contact JVC directly, contact me, AllNet Custom Plus and Volume customers, and of course MRI customers, please contact Patrick Siebert at the numbers up there. So what questions do we have?
All right, let me pull these up and we'll start going through them. All right, well, we had a lot of helpful tips on the slide thing. So everyone was wondering if you had multiple monitors, if maybe that was the issue.
Nope,
Let me
just
see.
one.
Yeah. So Adam asks about the 3-year warranty. Is there like a one-pager or a PDF document that can be shared on the warranty?
There is, but it's in the back of the. Yeah. So the short answer is yes.
Okay, sure. Okay, and then you mentioned that the PCI, the coverage on the PCI spectrum versus the coverage on the BC20 or the BT 2020 spectrum. What was the difference on the NX 579 versus the 4500? And is that changing with the new firmware, or is the firmware strictly changing the HDR?
The firmware is only changing HDR. It's not changing the color spectrum or the color gamut. The RS4500 has a little bit wider color gamut, maybe about almost 80% on the RS4500, where the NX7 and 9 are 77%, and the NX5 we don't spec BT 2020 color spec for the NX5. We do spec it at 90% of DCI-P3 for the NX5. So it goes like this: 5 is 100% Art Rec 709, 90% DCI-P3. NX7 and 9 are 100% Rec 709, 100% DCI-P3, 77% BT 2020, RS4500, 100% Rec 709, 100% DCI-P3, and about 80% of BT 2020 on the RS4500.
Okay, thanks. All right, and then the RS4500 has been in the line for quite a while. Is there any move on that one, or is it still remaining in the line?
That is still in the line, and it's very much current. We just updated that 400 is not going in. It's still probably the quintessential projector in the marketplace. I will say though, we have not been able to determine if we're able at this time to update it with Frame Adapt HDR. It was updated to auto tone mapping, but we don't know if we're going to be able to do HDR on the RS4500 based on the available memory that's there. We're trying to figure out what we can do to take features off that aren't being used to make room for that. But at this time, that does not have that ability or doesn't have a firm date if we are going to be able to update that with Frame Adapt HDR. The other ones, when production happens in October, that's when we'll release the firmware for the Frame Adapt HDR.
Okay, perfect. All right. So the other question that came up is in regard to lens shift. So JVC has historically had a really good lens shift, like among the best in the market. What are the lens shift parameters on the 5, the 7, and the 9?
Rick, you're breaking up or I'm breaking up.
Oh,
I can't hear the question.
Yeah, I had a little bit of a breakup on you the last time you spoke, so it could have been on either end. So the question was in relation to lens shift. So JVC has always had a really good lens shift, like a little bit stronger than other competitors. What is the lens shift relative to screen height on the 5, the 7, and the 9?
It's at 5 is at 80%. The 7 is at 80% and 34%. And then on the NX9 and 4500, it's at 100% and 43%.
Okay, perfect. Let me see. Mitchell is asking about the resources for where installers can go for options. Let me see. We lost a little bit here. For adjust, test, and setup. You had what was the app that you just showed a moment ago that talked about calculating screen brightness and things like that?
Video Calc is the name of the app, and that can be gotten at Google Play or the App Store from Apple. That is a purchase, I believe. I believe it's $4.99, but it's worth every dime. And then JVC will give you the horizontal and vertical offset. We don't give you the lumens, but we give you the horizontal and vertical offset with our lens projector calculator as well.
Okay, nice. Thank you. All right. Corey's asking about. Oh, hold on. Mitchell is asking a follow-up question. What about the pixel setups? He says.
The pixel setup. When I was referring to pixel setup, I was talking about the projector should be on for a minimum of 30 minutes before you go in and adjust the convergence. Either whole screen or 128 different quadrants that the rest of the.
Okay, we're having some breakup here. He's asking if it's the Spider X or.
The afternoon, but that's in a setup menu though.
Okay, I think we just lost you for the last 2 sentences.
The setup is done. The pixel convergence setup can either be done by whole pixel, all right, for the whole screen, or it can be done in 128 different quadrants of that screen. And you have to make sure that the projector has been on for over 30 minutes in order to do that accurately. And that's when you're going to get your best performance. But the convergence, you're adjusting the red and blue panels of the projector. So you want obviously those to all line up. In most cases, that doesn't have to be. In most cases, they're pretty good out of the box, but in worst case scenario, you may only be adjusting one or the other, one or 2 clicks at the most.
All right, thank you. All right, and what's the model of the new laser projector?
The LXNZ3, that'll be available in basically we're shipping to our distributors. You guys will receive those very early November, and that is using the new 0.47-inch chip from TI. Those are 1920 by 1080 resolution chips because DLP can state native 4K or actually 4K resolution because DLP, because of the micromirrors, each pixel can be individually addressed all at one time. So full disclosure on DLP, these are not native 4K projectors, but they are sold as 4K projectors because each pixel can be individually addressed. So therefore, the resolution is 3840 by 2160 from a 1920 by 1080 chip. They effectively are using E-shift, but again, it's the way the CEA has allowed DLP to be presented versus LCD or LCOS panels that both JVC and Sony make. So this is a 4K projector that's 3,000 lumens, laser optics, and it is I'm going to tell you a real technical term, it is an ass kicker. It was extremely well received at CEDIA, not necessarily entirely by our dealers, but more so from integrators like yourselves. This is something that, you know, a different lid for a different pot, multi-purpose room, larger screen, 3,000 lumens. This is a really nice little product. Now, the DLP product is 1 year parts and labor service warranty. To be clear, that is not a 3-year exchange warranty.
All right, thank you. All right, let's see what other questions we have here. Corey asked for the name of the app. It was Video Calc, correct?
Video Calc.
Okay, perfect. All right. So Mitchell's follow-up, I think we have a better connection now. And Mitchell's follow-up on the pixel setup, he was asking if we can use the Spider or any of the other
the pixel setup is not done by a Spider. That's all for color calibration and so forth. And that's through JVC software that can be downloaded from JVC using the Spider X or Spider 10 optical system.
Oh, okay, perfect. All right. And I think that's it. I think we just had questions about the color gamut coverage, the pixel by pixel setup, and then some questions about that new laser. That was about it.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody's time, attention. I'm sorry for the technical issues that we've experienced today, but nonetheless, I hopefully gave you some information that is good. Please follow up with any direct questions you have with your distributors and or myself or Patrick Siebert. And we'll be happy to answer those. It is the end of the month. It isn't the end of our half, so I don't expect answers back from me real quick because I'm trying to make a nut just like everybody else is this year or this quarter or half. So, that ends on Friday. Don't hesitate to give me a call, and if I pick up the phone, that means I'm available to talk. So emails, unless they're yes or no answers, it's probably best to have a conversation because with projector stuff, it's rarely yes or no. So it's better probably to chat. All right. Thank you for your business. Thank you for your time and good selling. Try to get some business at the end of the month because there's some real good incentives are there, and you want to beat that price increase on the NX7s. So thanks, guys.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And if anyone has any further questions, please feel free to reach out to your sales contacts at the distributor who you purchase from, either AllNet, MRI Direct, Custom Plus Distributing, or Valuetone, and we're happy to help. And as Jeff said, we've got promotional pricing that expires at the end of the month, which is, of course, Friday. And then we've also got the price increase that we're trying to get out ahead of. So if you have any NX7s spec'd projects, please take a close look at them. And if it makes sense, it might be worth giving us those POs before the end of the month to beat those price increases. So Thank you, everyone, for your time. We're going to go ahead and end the session now. Jeff, thanks again for your time. I know this is end of month and end of quarter and end of half for you. So thanks again for giving us the time today.
My pleasure.
Okay. Thanks, everyone.